Holy mackerel, we're on the fifth part of the digits practice WOD. And this time we're going to look at the edit contact page and get it to work correctly. As with the last WOD, you can watch this before actually trying to do it yourself, because I think this stuff is complicated enough the first time that you might just tie yourself in knots trying to do it without seeing how it should work. And then be sure to make sure that you're starting with your master branch. So take the previous WOD, merge it into master. I always recommend when you're doing these kind of things to quit Meteor, reset the database, and restart things from scratch, just to make sure that nothing went kablooey with the underlying database when you're switching back and forth. And of course, by now you're going to have the Meteor example form in IntelliJ, and you're using it. Okay, so let's get started. We'll start our timer. We're going to create a branch called edit contact 1. Actually, I'm going to create a branch called edit contact 2. And then I'm going to go back and see what I should do next. We're going to update the homepage URL using the list stuff page as an example, because we want to link to the edit page and the associated URL. So if we go back in here, let's take a look at Meteor example template list stuff page. And what we can see here is that there is this entry where we construct a path to the edit page with an underscore ID as the parameter, and then a link called edit. So let's copy that. We're gonna want the same thing, and we also need a header thing called edit. So let's let me just make things look a little better. Go back to digits. Go to our home page. So let's paste that in. But the path is not the edit stuff page. It's called edit contact page. And also, and then actually I'll just put in this header field here. And then if we go back to the instructions, we say we need to fix the route to bind ID to underscore ID, not ID. And that's because here you can see this underscore ID equals stuff underscore ID. So that's because the two example templates, for reasons I'm not proud of, don't use the same parameter name here in the router. Maybe that's a good thing, just so you're kind of aware those things can change, but whatever. So we fixed that, which means that edit contact has a parameter called underscore ID, and then in home page we will say underscore ID, that parameter, equals the underscore ID of the contact document. Remember, for each contact in contact list. Okay, so the contact document Mongo underscore ID is this exact same as that parameter. Hopefully that will all work right. In fact, it seems to me that if we now go here, okay, everything should be running. So if we go to digits, we can see, in fact, there's now an edit field, and we can see down in the lower left we have edit contact and then the ID of the associated field. So that's looking pretty good, actually. And so now what we want to do is we want to go to edit contact form HTML and use the edit student data HTML as an example, as a template, to update this page. So let's now go to edit contact page.html. Looks like this. Let's go to the analogous one, edit student data page. Okay. And the first thing we notice is that we need this if template subscriptions ready at the top, and then end if down here at the very bottom. So let's go back to digits, and we put in the if template subscriptions ready at the very top before the div, and then at the bottom we'll say /if to close out that that if statement. And then the next thing we notice is that, again, like we had previously, we have this success and error because we do want to do validation, you know, on the update, right? Someone could mess up when they're trying to update their thing. So we're going to, we need to have validation. Again, we're not going to need that success class, just like before, because we're going to route back to the home page when we do a submission. And again, that going to change that to contact data form to make sure that that our submit, we can find the submit event appropriately. And then if we go back here to not that one, but that one, we start looking. So the next thing we look is at the input, and what we're going to notice here is that, like before, we need that ID field, and then we have a value field. So let's we'll remember about putting the ID field, and then let's get that value field, and we'll copy that. Go back to digits. We'll say ID equals first, placeholder's first name, and then let's put in that value. And we want to say not student data field, but contact field. We have to write a helper function called contact field. And what we're going to pass is the value associated with the first name. Okay. Now, if we go back over to form, we can see. Oh, and then I guess we also want to have this display field error. So let's put that in there too. Okay, and this is first and first name. So there's three things. So this has now become kind of the canonical thing we need to do for all our 5 fields, which is we've got to update the ID field, we've got to put a value in, and because these are all text fields, we're going to do it the exact same way. What I was going to say is that when you look at Meteor Example Form, you can see that almost every field has a different approach to getting the value in it. So in a text field, you have a value attribute. In a text area, you put the data between the 2 parts of the element, and then you have all sorts of other crazy stuff you do for checkboxes or selection lists and so forth. But we're lucky, if you can call it that, for the digits application because we just got a bunch of text fields. So all we have to worry about is doing this value thing. But I'm just noting that when you get into more complicated kind of form controls, you have to do more complicated kinds of things. And that's hopefully the beauty of this Meteor Example Form application, is that it shows you how you do it for all the different flavors with Semantic UI. Okay, but anyway, that said, back to digits. Let's update the ID field. I guess we'll do it. I guess I'll just do all the IDs. ID equals telephone, and then ID equals email. And then we'll do all the values. So we've done all the IDs. Then we'll do all the values. It should be last. It should be address. It should be telephone. And this should be email. And then we're going to put in our validation error messages. Last, and then address. Boy, autoform is looking better all the time, isn't it? Telephone. But it's good to know how this stuff all works, because you need to be able to understand how events and helpers and everything like that work. So if you go back to AutoForm after this, I think that this is a really good exercise. Okay, so we've updated, we've got our contact field helper. It's going to give the values. We've got our IDs. We've got display field errors. Let's go look and see meteor example form. Let's just look down at the bottom here. The update, that all looks just like we have. So I think we're good to go with respect to edit contact. Okay. So now let's go back and review our instructions. We've got so we've done the edit contact page.html. Next thing is edit contact page.js, and similar, we're going to use the JavaScript from meteor example form as an example. So let's go back in here. Edit contact page.js has nothing in it. So let's go to meteor example form. Edit student data page has a lot of stuff in it. So let's just copy it and then go to digits, paste it in, and again we're going to go line by line and make it work right. So contacts is our collection. Contact schema is our schema. Contacts is the place where we'll find it. No success message for us today. And then we'll subscribe. Oh, and then the next thing is edit contact page. Very important. Again, don't ever forget to do this part. You'll forget once, and then things will work weird, and you'll track it down. You know, mistakes are inevitable, right? Okay, so then we're going to get rid of this display message. Contact schema is now, and then we'll say edit contact page. So again, we're subscribing to the data. We're creating a reactive dictionary, which is going to be called message flags, and then we're going to set a string called display error message as the key. We'll set that to be false, indicating we're not going to display any error messages when the page is created. We create this validation context called edit context page. We attach it to the schema. This is the thing we use to basically store error messages, and they are reactive, which means that the page will automatically update itself when it sees an error. Okay, so here we're going to call this contact field, if I'm not mistaken, and we'll say contact equals contacts.find1 flow router get param. So remember that underscore ID in the URL is going to be the doc ID. We'll call find1, which will return the actual object from Mongo and assign it equal to this contact. And then we can return, if the contact exists, then we return the field name. Okay, so if we go to our HTML, here it is. Contact field with a field name is going to invoke this helper function with a field name. We find the contact. If the contact exists, because sometimes these reactive variables in Meteor may not be bound yet when this is found, so we use this guard idea, which you can read about more here, to make sure that we don't try to invoke this field accessor unless contact actually has a value at this point in time. Okay, so that's how that works. So we don't have any hobbies, levels, GPAs, or majors, so we just get rid of those. And we don't care about success, so we can get rid of that. But we do care about errors, and we do care about field errors. So there's our helper functions. And then on rendered, since we don't have any complicated semantic UI JavaScript stuff that we have to do, we can just get rid of that. We do subscribe to the data in the onCreated page. And then we get to the events. Okay, and so basically this event handler submit, and it's not going to be student data form, it's going to be contact data form. Okay, this turns out to be really exactly the same as this. The only difference is that instead of doing an insert, we will do an update. Okay, so here's here's the way I think is the easiest way to do that. We're going to copy that line because we want to remember how that works and put it here, and then we can go to add contact page.js, and let's just take the body and we'll copy it. And we'll put that body in here. Okay? So now that looks just the same as before. And then but this is the line that's not good. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take this, we'll copy it, and we'll put it underneath, and then we'll delete this line. And then we'll say, no, it's not student data, it's contacts. And then it's not updated student data, it's new contact. Okay, and then we can get rid of this line here. But the only thing I'm uncomfortable with is that it's not really a new contact, it's an updated contact. So we could do a Shift F6 to rename all those references at once. So now we're calling this updated contact, and I think that's much more descriptive. And then we go to the home page after that's done. Okay, so that looks like the JS. We're redirecting the home page upon a successful form submission. That sounds good. So I guess there's nothing left to do but actually try and see if this. Oh, and so Meteor Tracker is no longer referenced, so we can delete that. See if ESLint looks happy. So let's go off to digits and let's see what's happening. Okay, so we've restarted. So let's go to edit, and dagnabbit, we don't have any data in here. So let's do a propeller J and figure out why we're not getting that data populated. So flow router get param underscore ID. That looks good. And okay. Okay, so I paused it so I could think a little bit, and then I realized I was subscribing to student data up here, not contacts. So this can be a big problem when you're cutting and pasting code, is making sure that you've corrected and renamed everything that you should. But fortunately, the good news is that when you do start with code like that, with any luck, it's easy to find the changes. So there we go. Now we're getting the data in there. And we could change Henry to Henry and click update, and now we say Henry. Okay? So let's go back to digits. We've tested, we've debugged, Took me about 21 minutes with the debugging, so it took about 2 or 3 minutes for me to figure that out. And so I'll now commit edit contact. And we'll call it 22 minutes. I'm gonna, since I had to debug it, I guess I just got to call that part of the RX time. So I hope you enjoyed this and that you now understand how to do the edit update pages.